Hello everyone, welcome to the EOS EVM launch event organized by the EOS Network Foundation. I'm Winston, the Chief Editor of Ternary Capital, also the host of tonight's event. Today, I'm so glad to witness the launch of the EOS EVM, which will be broadcast live in both Chinese and English. We are honored to invite the founder and CEO of EOS Network Foundation, Mr. Yves La Rose, and Mr. Matias Romeo, the leader of EVM Plus technical team from EOS Argentina, and Dr. Yarkin, the core member of EVM Plus product team. They'll start in-depth discussions in terms of the EOS development plan, EOS EVM technical advantages, competitive analysis, and the EOS EVM Web3 solutions. Let's start. Firstly, welcome to Yves La Rose. Yves La Rose is the executive director and founder of the EOS Network Foundation, which is ENF. He started his blockchain journey in 2010 when he began mining Bitcoin on his laptop. In 2018, he co-founded EOS Nation and led it to become the top-rated block producer on the largest and most valuable network using EOSIO. Throughout his tenure as CEO of EOS Nation, Yves recognized he was uniquely positioned to unite the stakeholders of the EOS network into a foundation that would work on behalf of all EOS token holders to realize the true potential of EOS. Yves stepped down as CEO of EOS Nation and founded the EOS Network Foundation in 2020. Since the foundation of ENF has dedicated himself to working for the benefits of EOS public blockchain, the many and the stakeholders' benefits. Yves also built up a team at the EMF to meet the needs of EOS community by empowering the community itself. We know that in the past 3 years, due to the long-term passive attitude of Block 1, the development of EOS has been difficult. But all has changed after establishing the ENF. How about the new journey of the EOS? Let's focus on what Yves sharing.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Winston. And thank you, Daisy, as well. Daisy is going to be translating as I speak. And her and I have been working quite a bit lately. And I really want to give it a shout out to her because she's pretty amazing. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining today. I see that we have over 350 people in here. And so it should be a pretty good event. We'll have some questions at the end. I'm really looking forward to speak with all of you. The general idea with the ENF, when I decided to create it and when it became somewhat of a vision, was that we saw that in the EOS ecosystem, there was a void. There was a need for an entity that could coordinate resources and that could essentially leverage all of the experience and the knowledge that the ecosystem had learned over the past 4 years and really ramp things up to come and fill voids that were present at the time. Now, there are a few things that make the ENF very different or unique as compared to other foundations. So what we see in other ecosystems is that most of the other ecosystems have foundations that were created at launch of the ecosystem, and they each got token allocation at the early onset or network launch. And so the foundation in this regard, the EOS Network Foundation in this regard, is quite unique because it came after the fact. It came into existence 4 years after the mainnet launch, and it is continuously accountable to the token holders as it continuously seeks back a feedback loop to go back to the block producers, to the token holders in order to justify its existence and essentially create this accountability mechanism to ensure that it continues creating value for the token holders. Now, another thing that's unique with EOS is it really highlights the power of Web3. So essentially, since firing Block 1 and taking over the EOSIO codebase, the ENF has been taking a multi-pronged strategic approach to mature EOS into the best-in-class Web3 smart contract platform and blockchain ecosystem. In 2022, the ENF established multiple working groups across many areas of expertise. It published multiple research papers and outlining essentially over 70 enhancement proposals, formed an EOSIO development coalition, and recently that coalition has committed over $8 million of funding within its first year. Now, the idea behind the ENF was that it was coming to fill that void that existed when there was no roadmap. Token holders in EOS, depending on what kind of stakeholders they were, whether they were builders, developers, businesses, they didn't really know where EOS was heading. And this is really what was set the foundation for the ENF to be able to come and address that void, that gap that existed, so that people could see themselves in the vision and could see where EOS was heading for the first time in a very long time. Now, as part of that vision and as part of that mandate of enabling developers, businesses, and individuals to build on EOS, we also recognized that the ENF needed to secure the talent, essentially the developers that have created the software stack itself. And so in the last couple of months, we've been securing the developers that essentially created the software. If you go look at GitHub, the ENF has entered into partnerships or has directly employed essentially the top 10 or so developers from the EOSIO ecosystem and has started deploying them and placing them into positions to be able to leverage and amplify that core code base, working towards that vision that we've set out a few months back. Now, one of the earliest priorities we set was EVM. And so when the ENF got created late in August of 2021, we set out to plan out an aggressive roadmap. And one of the highest priorities was the EVM. We knew that we needed to tackle that early because it would take time to actually come to deployment. And this is why we're here today. So over the last 4 months or so, we have been developing the EVM in the background, and we selected one of the top tier developer teams, EOS Argentina, and Matias is going to be giving a presentation later. And it was an obvious choice to choose EOS Argentina and specifically Matias because EOS Argentina had been developing on graphene-based DPoS blockchain since BitShares. And they were also a core contributor to such thing, for example, as MetaMask working on EOS. Now, on top of bringing in a strong developer team, we wanted to ensure that the public good, the actual EVM compatibility, the code itself, wasn't simply output out and put out into the public without any supporting product alongside it. So on top of securing a team to build the actual compatibility, we also secured a team, and you'll be hearing from Dr. Who later on. We secured a team that was a Y Combinator alumni, a team that essentially has experience in building products, strong products, to come and help so that in tandem, building the actual public good, the actual EVM compatibility, we had a team that was working hand in hand to build the product side of things so that once the EVM launches, we actually have products to go alongside it. I'm really excited to announce, because we've been working on this for a couple of months, the name of the product itself. Now you have to give it a little bit of background. So EOS has lacked trust from many people in the blockchain industry for a long time. In part, and a big part, is due to Block One's broken promises and failure to its commitments to support the network as expected. And so the ENF, since its launch, has brought trust back into the leadership of the network and into this community. And therefore, today, I'm excited to announce that the official product name for the EOS EVM is Trust Network. And the token ticker for its gas and governance token will be the EVM, official EVM token. Now, people ask, why is the ENF focusing on EVM? Isn't that outdated technology? Or isn't Ethereum essentially capped and it won't be able to scale? Well, part of it is you can have as much technology as you want. You can have as much power as you want, which we know we have in EOS. But what we lack is all the rest. And what the EVM brings is essentially opening the doors to an immense amount of developers that are in the blockchain ecosystem that have simply been eager and they've been hungry for that power, but they haven't had a means to come into the EOS ecosystem. And the EVM will open that door for them. The EVM will give us the possibility to give a taste, just give a little glimpse to those developers and to those businesses, those token holders, so that they can see what they've been missing out on. Trust EVM will usher in the next generation of DeFi and GameFi with limitless possibilities when combining the speed, the throughput, and the cost of EOS for Solidity-based applications running on the EOS EVM. Trust EVM will revolutionize the DeFi and GameFi landscape as it exists. Now, the Trust EVM is a game changer for DeFi and GameFi because it's built using Solidity as it is for the first time, and it can truly become scalable with transaction fee model to enable mainstream use cases with sub-second block speed, 0.5 second blocks. EOS is one of the most battle-tested Gen 3 blockchains, and now it's fully compatible with Ethereum Virtual Machine, and the sky's the limit with Trust EVM. Now, people ask, What's different about EOS? Why is EOS's EVM so special? Well, one of the things is that EOS is sitting on tremendous power in terms of scalability, in terms of throughput. And that power essentially has been hidden from the rest of the blockchain ecosystem over the last 4 years. The EVM will come and open the doors for people to get a glimpse of that power. If we look back over the last 2 years, EOS was able to sustain over 120 million transactions per day during periods of high congestion. And that was without any network stoppage or downtime. It did so consistently for a period of time. Put that in perspective, 120 million transactions per day for a period of time. That was more than all other blockchains combined for a lengthy period of time. 120 million transactions per day, that was more than Ethereum and Bitcoin do in a full year. And this is what's going to become available with Trust EVM. And we're not talking about theoretical power. We're not talking about in test nets or in controlled conditions. We're talking about live, battle-tested EOS over the last 4 years. And this is a few years ago. This is before we've made improvements to the architectural design of EOS. This is before we've actually optimized the nodes and the actual infrastructure underlying the block producers. This is 2 years ago. Imagine what we're capable of doing now. And this is what we're going to give access to the world. Now, the EOS EVM, Trust EVM, will allow for tokens to be held and transferred with only an Ethereum public key and MetaMask. No EOS account is required. All you need to do is pay a small amount of gas per transaction and everything else will just work. So why then, or how then, do the EOS token holders benefit? Well, there are a few ways that they benefit, but I think the most important way is that EOS itself, that the token holders themselves, have subsidized the EOS EVM, and they're therefore shareholders into this now Trust EVM. Part of the fees and part of the tokenomics that we've created with the EVM, part of that revenue will go back to the token holders. And if in an ideal scenario, the EVM is incredibly powerful, incredibly successful, and it's capable of bringing in many developers back into the space, that revenue that will be generated will directly offset the cost to the ecosystem that, for example, the ENF bears on it. Now, the Trust EVM will also have synergies with other core pillars that we've created, in part, for example, the Yield Plus group. So Yield Plus will serve to complement the Trust EVM deployment, as it'll provide an incentive model for existing DeFi and GameFi projects and open source code written in Solidity to be easily cloned, forked, or expanded to EOS with negligible development costs to do so. This will enable new projects to deploy quickly and focus their budget on marketing and community building to track new users and TVL rather than engineering costs. Now, over the coming months, you're going to see EVM products and that you should expect to deploy over the coming months. Wallet, bridges, DEX, a Launchpad, Explorer. All of these functions will come online over the next quarter to come and complement the function that has been created, which is the actual open source code, the EVM itself, the compatibility itself. I can't be more excited about the future of EOS, especially with this EVM. It marks a major milestone in EOS's path to becoming the best-in-class blockchain for highly scalable Web3 applications.
Thanks, Yves, for his wonderful sharing. I believe that through his speech, everyone has a clear understanding on the development of EOS and the difficulties it has experienced and overcome. But more importantly, the establishment of the EOS Network Foundation has brought everything back to the right track. Now, we are in an unprecedented time, and with the official launch of the EOS EVM Trust, more exciting changes are around the corner. Please stay tuned for the official accounts of ENF China and Trust EVM on Twitter. So after Yves' sharing, I believe that everyone has developed a strong interest in Trust, the platform of EOS EVM. So let's welcome Matias, the EVM Plus technical leader from EOS Argentina, to share Trust in technology implementation and architecture.
It's a pleasure for me to be here, and also thanks to everyone who is attending right now. It's pretty exciting to be so much interest in this release. Before diving into the technical aspects of the EVM, I want to share with you what were our main objectives when we started planning EVM support on EOS. We set ourselves the goal to give developers the same user experience they are used to when using other main EVM chains. And this includes deterministic gas billing, EVM compatibility at the instruction level, and also full Rpc compatibility. At the beginning of the project, we had two options regarding how to support EVM on EOS. One was to implement it as a part of the native EOS client, and the other one was to implement it as a regular smart contract. Since EOS has a very efficient layer 1 virtual machine, and the protocol also allows for extensions, we choose to go the smart contract way. And for the EVM precompiled contracts, which are computation-intensive functions that are available to the EVM contracts, what we are doing is we are creating a protocol extension for EOS, which will implement them as new EOS intrinsics, increasing the compatibility of the implementation and also speeding up the contract execution. Going into some details on how the EVM on EOS works, it all starts when a user sends a signed EVM transaction that can be created by MetaMask or any other tool to the Rpc server. Then the Rpc server will wrap this transaction into an EOS transaction and send it to the EOS EVM contract. Then the EOS EVM contract will validate the EVM transaction, which was signed by the user, and will apply it in the state. The EVM runtime contract, the one that is implementing the EVM virtual machine, is based on the EVM1, which is a fast open source C+ EVM implementation. The state of the EVM contracts lives inside the EOS state, meaning that it's accessible to the outside world and also to any other regular EOS contract. Having EVM support on EOS will make a new runtime available to the chain. This will be like one chain, two runtimes. And this will allow EVM contracts to interact with EOS counterparts, opening up the possibility of many ways to interoperate, like moving tokens between runtimes using trustless bridges and many more. We are very happy to be releasing this developer preview, but we also have many more things coming up in the future. So part of our roadmap ahead includes to extend the EOS client with custom plugins for the JSON RPC interface based on the Eragon architecture, optimize the EVM implementation to allow for greater transaction throughput, finish the protocol extension for the Ethereum precompiled contract support, and also looking for the graph integration with an instrumented EOS client. So that's all for me, and I pass it back to Winston. Thank you.
Thanks, Matias, for the inspiring sharing. I believe everyone has felt that the EVM Plus team has done a lot of work. As the representative of native POS, EOS has excellent performance, low gas fee, and verified security, which are also guaranteed on trust. At the same time, trust is also compatible with EVM user experience and realized interoperability with EOS. I think the EVM team really did amazing work. But I'm also very curious, based on the excellent balance of efficiency, experience, and security, how will trust develop its own ecosystem in the future? And what surprises will bring to developers and users? I would like to invite Dr. Yarkin, the core member of EVM Plus product team, to share with us.
Yves and Matias already discussed some of the advantage of this Trust EVM project, and I believe all of you know quite well about the ecosystem of the blockchain. Yet, I still want to reiterate them in a more organized way so we can see why this EOS plus EVM combination carries a great promise. As we know, different features of the blockchain enables quite a lot of innovative business. Some rely on the privacy from anonymity, some rely on the tokens backed by the trust from the consensus, the POW or POS. Some rely on the form for the world computer. This makes on-chain entity have a totally different mode of operation and profiting model against the traditional companies. In addition, the open source nature of the blockchain world and token-based incentive model makes the blockchain world a more active and decentralized place that people can ever imagine before. Yet the opportunity comes with challenge. All the good things mentioned above come with some requirements. If the requirements are not fulfilled properly, the blessing can easily become curses. Existing public chain more or less have some bottlenecks there. It could be the performance, such as latency or TPS, or maybe have high gas fee, or it's just simply hard to use, or even worse, some have some reliability or security issues. That's why the EOS can have a good balance as a public chain. It has some unique advantages there. Firstly, as we all know, EOS is a time-tested chain with high performance. I have to emphasize that, as Yves mentioned right before, now, EOS is stable for years with huge amounts of transactions per day. Clearly, this can easily offer a good experience in DeFi, especially in digital asset trading, things like that. And this is the basic of everything else. Secondly, we know there is an ongoing consumption boom of digital contents in the blockchain world right now, especially for games. And we also know there were and are a lot of games. In some sense, this shows that EOS is technology-wise friendly to games, and this has been approved by users. With this EOS plus EVM project, we can bring the good gaming experience of EOS to the EVM world, and let's see what chemistry reaction will happen. Last but not least, with the high performance of the EOS, we can make the Web3 interaction experience closer to Web2 in terms of latency. General Web2 users may tolerate 1 second of latency when clicking something, but never 10 seconds. This latency is one of the key issues blocking the user migrating from Web2 to Web3. Therefore, an EVM over EOS with low latency from EOS will make it possible to introduce many popular DApps on Ethereum to Web2 users. This will not only help generate high user growth, but also create more possibilities. To better explore this possibility, to have better games and a better asset trading experience, we'll need help from you, the community. We will organize hackathon project for the new trusted project. Whether you have great new ideas, a queue for some long-standing problems, or simply a better quality of life utility, welcome to join us toward a better EOS and EVM metaverse.
Thanks for Yarkin's insightful. It seems that the EOS EVM platform trust has been fully prepared to make all existing Solidity-based smart contracts, tools, SDKs, and code databases be compatible with the EVM and be able to interoperate with the EOS system. Trust has the ability and confidence to attract more developers, devs, and users to join in the EOS ecosystem through the excellent performance and large advantages of the product, as well as a comprehensive migration plan. Reminder, it's strongly recommended for users to follow Trust official Twitter, whose handle is Trust EVM, and for developers to follow the developer channel in Discord. Let's push EOS into a brand new era together. We also invited more than 100 KOLs, community representatives, and medias in today's event. After joining in the Trust launch, the KOLs, community representatives, and also the medias should have more questions about Trust.
Hello everyone, I'm Ling Er from Colorful Research Institute. Colorful Research Institute is a one-stop service community created by a group of digital asset enthusiasts in the blockchain. It aims at building a world-class blockchain service platform. We are focusing on market operation, construction, and development of blockchain in China and overseas, which covers community building, community maintenance, AMAs, news, and publicity about EOS. EVM core working group is one of the 9 working groups established by the ENF, while other core working groups include API Plus, Quote Plus, Wallet Plus, Audit Plus, Market Plus, Yield Plus, Recover Plus, and EOSIO Plus. So in the future, the core working groups will continue to promote the development of DeFi, GameFi, and others in the EOS ecosystem. And the core working groups will also provide support for the implementation of business and services in the EOS roadmap. As we know, the EVM working group proceeds directly to product delivery with an implementation of an EVM on EOS at the smart contract level. And my question, 2 parts. So it is that achieving EVM compatibility is a great breakthrough for the EOS ecosystem, while there are still 2 huge challenges for EOS. The first part of my question is how to achieve EVM compatibility and come up with the best solution by the EVM working group. And the second part is I'd like to ask Matias or Yarkin to talk about the EVM developer team and highlight their advantages.
I can take the second one about the development team. Currently, the core developer team, we are 4. Is Dr. Yarkin, who is also here as a speaker. 2 developers from EOS Argentina, which is me and Jorge, which are seasoned C+ developers, and also Arin Haggerty, which is part of the ENF, which is one of the top EO protocols engineers in the world. So basically, that's the development team for now. And the first question was, can you repeat it again?
Yes, the first question is how to achieve EVM compatibility and come up with the best solution by the EVM working group?
Well, maybe I'm too technical here, but the EVM has a pretty specific specification which is clearly defined, and what we are doing is basing our development on some standard library which happens to pass all the consensus tests, transaction tests. But since we are bundling it on top of a regular EOS smart contract, we are doing like a full integration test on the EVM. Not only that, but also security audit is on the roadmap. Basically, we are following the EVM specification to be 100%.
Dr. Hu, do you have anything to add, or if we can move on to the next question?
Yeah, maybe I just add something. Matias just introduced the tech team, and I remember if the question is also about what's the advantage of us. So come to advantage, like technically EVM is not our trust project is not only related to EVM but also related to the EOS. Clearly, we need to combine them perfectly and bring them the best performance of EOS. That's why we are building our team like that. Our team will be the most suitable and have deepest understanding on both sides. So in the future, we will try to enroll more people using this standard. Let's see what we can achieve. And that's it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Strawberry Milk. I'm from the Anger Rabbit community. We are focusing on blockchain technical sharing, such as GameFi data sharing, new revenue calculation, project investment analysis, etc. So let's talk about the benefits of Trust EVM from our point of view. New members in our community often ask why the EOS wallet isn't compatible with Firefox. After EOS becomes EVM compatible, I believe the users could smoothly transit to EOS by general blockchain browsers, wallets, as well as Firefox. The user experience should be very smooth. I believe that with the launch of Trust, new users can easily connect to EOS, and users in the whole ecosystem will increase rapidly. As a matured blockchain, EOS has generated many of the original blockchain techniques and concepts. However, because of the popularity nowadays, a few people really master their development skills, and open source tools are not enough in the market. Developers in our community cannot thoroughly learn and participate in everything. With the launch of Trust, we can quickly join the EOS ecosystem. And with the launch of other excellent tools, we can quickly do research and apply deployments such as data monitoring and analysis, functional assistance like developing some interesting little tools, etc. We can easily serve community users and contribute to the EOS ecosystem. So it's a win-win situation for all. And the question from me is, will there be community cooperation plans in the future efforts of the EOS ecosystem?
That was a really good question. So yes, I guess the question is there community cooperation plans? So there have been, I guess, community cooperation plans now for quite some time. So the ENF established multiple avenues for community cooperation early on. A few of them, for example, would be the Pomelo Grants platform. We just recently launched the ENF Direct Grant Framework. We've got Eden. We've got multiple Edens now. We've got Eden in the West, Eden in China, which is just gearing up and had their first mock election. They'll be working on their first large election. And then we also have the same with Eden Korea. And so there's going to be multiple venues, either that already exists that people will be able to leverage, and or some that are currently in the works. For example, like Yield Plus Working Group, which again, as I mentioned earlier, will go into detail and will work on liquidity incentive programs to attract on-chain TVL, both native to EOS as well as the Trust EVM to kickstart the DeFi and GameFi ecosystems. I think it's also important to understand that the ENF was born out of decentralization, but it really stems from the community. And so keeping our ears to the ground is really important, which is why we host a lot of these Twitter spaces. Or, for example, every Wednesday, we host a fireside chat where we attend for about 2 hours on a weekly basis. We continuously keep our ear to the ground, and we continuously keep talking to the community through multiple venues in order to ensure that what it is we do and where it is we go is really what is the sentiment that is shared from either large token holders, small token holders, community members, developers, whoever they may be in the ecosystem. We try to rally all of that into one to really figure out where we're going and why we're going there. Now, one of the most important things that we wanted to ensure when we launched the ENF was, like I mentioned earlier, that there was a gap that was created over the last 4 years where various stakeholders within the EOS ecosystem didn't know where we were going and didn't know how they fit into the picture. So where they could come and help and contribute. And so one of our biggest focuses from the onset at the ENF has been to work in a very transparent and open manner, letting the community know what it is we're working on, where it is we're going, and more importantly, how they fit in that picture and what they can come and do to help contribute so that we can all work towards the same objective and essentially row, if you're in a rowboat, where everybody's rowing at the same time towards the same common goal. And so we will continue doing that. We'll continue embedding ourselves within the community, and we'll ensure that wherever it is that we're going, everybody is aware of it and they can play a key role into making us achieve those goals.
Thanks for Anchor Rabbit community's question, and also thanks for Yves' wonderful answer. Let's move to another KOL, Zero, from the Stepblock community.
Hello everyone, I'm the founder of Stepblock. Our community is focused on blockchain data mining and news share and tutorial context create. First of all, thanks Matias for introducing Trust EVM to us. My first application into crypto, which was based on the US. At that time, it took a lot of trouble to open a new US account, but there were many very funny games at that time. So I would like to ask, after developed the new compatible EVM, how can US establish advantage against the non and high TPS public blockchain, some like Solana, bring a lot of new and great ecosystem?
That's quite a good questions. Let's hand over the microphone to Yarkin and Matias for these questions.
So the question is about advantage on the competition with other chains. So I think it's the first about the ecosystem. We must thank Ethereum, Solana, and other projects for contributions. They have created so many great projects there. In this sense, we can see further because we stand on the shoulder of the giants. We will reach cooperate with these well-known projects, especially those DeFi projects, and introduce them to our EVM ecosystem. We will also try to make an improvement to them based on the feature of the and to see if we can provide a better user experience there, and that will be our unique advantage. Secondly, for the user growth, as a matter of fact, the user number of the Ethereum do not even reach 20% of the Web 2. So there's a lot we can do to attract new users. No need to compete with others to death. We will increase the support to the developers community, especially around games and NFTs, to incubate trust-only innovative DApps, contents, and hot topics, and try to attract new users from the whole Web2 population. Of course, we will not forget our old loyal friends, so please stay tuned for information regarding our developer community events. While last, from the contrarian investment point of view, so EOS did not perform well in the past. It's still quite good liquidity and has a large space for price to rise. This means that we have a solid foundation and a large potential for the ROI. In this sense, it's quite a nice thing compared to other public chain projects, no matter for developers or investors.
Does the compatible EVM undermine its own security?
If I understand the question correctly, it's asking if the support of EVM on EOS will compromise in some way the network security as it is today. I think that the short answer is no. Supporting the EVM on EOS will not undermine the current EOS network security. In fact, we are pretty confident that the current network can support a high load of transactions on the EVM contract. And also, since the EVM contract is a regular smart contract on EOS, it runs inside a sandbox, right? And inside the EOS VM sandbox, as any other regular contract. Besides that, the EVM is being tested for compliance, and security audits are planned in the near future with 2 recognized companies that do security audits, which are Sentinel and Slowmist.
We can jump to the next section, which is our AMA section.
Hello everyone, I'm from the Little Lotus community. Our community focuses on the latest news in the Solana ecosystem, including project analysis, airdrops, IDO, DeFi, coin market opportunities. Besides Solana, we also look for the potential opportunities of the entire industry and track the progress of Web3, DAO, and GameFi. For Ethereum or other sub-blockchain, their prosperity is essential for the crypto industry. In the future, here there is a great possibility to convert users from one to another blockchain. The combination of each chain through EVM is a co-effort bringing 1 + 1 greater than 2. So my question is, after EOS EVM is officially launched, can the stability and speed of the network be better addressed?
So as I mentioned earlier, EOS is already very stable. Essentially, EOS has been battle tested for the last 4 years. That doesn't mean, though, that there still aren't improvements that we can make and there still aren't any issues that we want to solve. And so over the last 4 years, obviously, we've been working in the back end at making sure that EOS could handle a tremendous amount of transactions per second. And we mentioned that earlier, where at peak congestion, EOS was able to accommodate roughly 120 million transactions. When I say 120 million transactions in a 24-hour period, I don't mean in a theoretical landscape. I really mean in a live environment. Now, one of the things is that happened over 2 years ago. And since then, EOS has been getting stronger. One of the things that really separates EOS from other blockchain ecosystems that are, let's say, generation 3 layer 1 blockchains is the fact that it's been battle tested. But not only that, at the onset of the creation of the foundation, we continued deploying resources towards increasing that backend infrastructure to be able to increase the strength of our foundations. And we did so through the original working groups, the API Plus, Core Plus, Wallet Plus, and Audit Plus. So we'll continue ensuring that the backend and the strength, the foundations of EOS are being addressed and that resources are still being deployed to its foundations. Now, having said that, that is one of the things that is incredibly strong about EOS is that it's not fluff. There's actual strong foundations to the product itself. What EOS has been lacking is the marketing around it, or is the doors that need to be open in order to let people come and get a glimpse or a taste of that power. And so lately I've been mentioning this concept of a pent-up volcano. There's tremendous pressure that has been contained in EOS for such a long time. And this is an amazing opportunity. There's so much opportunity, and the return on investment could be so high to essentially open the floodgates and have that tremendous pent-up pressure released. And this is what we believe the EVM will come and complement, come and help achieve.
The EOS network has been tested over time. I'm pretty confident on the stability of the network in the amount of performance that it can provide. There's a lot of potentials on the network that is not being used, a lot of throughput that it's available to not only the EVM contract, but to any other high traffic contract. So I think that's most of the thing, right? And another thing that also you've mentioned is that every improvement on the EOS client will have an impact on the EVM performance. So, and there's work being made in that regard also in the working groups. So I don't see a bottleneck there, and I think the network is ready to support a high amount of throughput on the.
Thanks for everyone's questions and answers. As for EOS, achieving EVM compatibility will help unlock the potential of the entire ecosystem and also play a vital role in the future development. So now let's move to the exciting AMA with the EMF and EVM team. We'll invite several audiences to ask questions to our guests.
I just want to ask one question. It's a simple question. So as you guys know, if any of the public chain wants to popular, it's only because how good the app. So that's why most of the public chain, they all have their own grant plan. So I only want to ask, EOS have their own grant plan? If have, so what size of the grant? Because if I'm not wrong, I remember the issue is supplied 1 BTC for the grant. Thank you.
I guess I'll take that question. Thank you for that question. So we have actually 2 mechanisms, I think, that address your question. And I mentioned them earlier. So the first one is Pomelo. Pomelo is equivalent to, let's say, Gitcoin in Ethereum. So it's a quadratic funding based mechanism to be able to hand out grants to teams that are working on projects. It's focused on the public good side of things. And we see right now Pomelo Season 2 is ongoing. It's currently live. There's a matching pool of just under $900,000 with an extra contribution of a little over $125,000. So the total grants that will be going out within the next few weeks in this season will be a little bit over $1 million.
Whoa, That's a lot.
And to add to that as well, the top teams right now, obviously the season is still ongoing, but the top projects that are getting matched at this stage are around the $70,000 to $90,000 matching. And so that's what we expect for the current teams that are, let's say, in the lead. Now, having said that, the teams that are, let's say, in the top 10, top 20, they receive roughly between $20,000 and $30,000, which is what we currently see right now. The season isn't done. To add to this, we also have what we released, which is the ENF grant framework, which was just released recently. The ENF grant framework has 3 levels of funding mechanism. So level 1 is up to $10,000, level 2 is up to $50,000, and level 3 starts at $50,000 and will likely go to around the $250,000 mark in terms of grants. So EOS has historically been starved of funding. That's been one of the key issues that the ENF came in to address. And since the EOS Foundation at the end of August last year, so roughly, let's say 7 or 8 months worth of operations, we've given out a little over $10 million worth of grants. And that's only ramping up with the recently launched grant framework. So expect to see more in the coming months.
Wow, that's quite a lot of money. Very impressive. So thanks Yves' answer, and also thanks for your questions. Let's move to next question. I see 4 billion DAO.
Thank you. And I come from 4 billion DAO. We are a EOS DAO project. So my question will be from our team's perspective. And the question is, recently in that bullish market, we haven't seen a lot of activities, or we haven't seen EOS being very active. And recently in the market, we haven't heard from EOS, but recently we have seen some soft launch from like sharing about the communities and about all the fundings, about the financing, etc. So will ENF also consider supporting DAO organization or some related DAO as well?
Of course. So your question is really good. What we've seen in the last year or so in this bull market is that EOS really missed the boat, and it really didn't see an influx of capital as other projects saw. And in large part, one of the reasons that we heard when we go out and do an environmental scan and speak to token holders, we speak to stakeholders, businesses, developers, is that there was a stigma associated to EOS. And EOS was really being associated to the company Block One. And unfortunately, that stigma has really brought the perception and the branding of EOS itself as being a scam, even though that is not the case, because EOS itself is an actually very strong product. It's a vibrant community, and we're seeing that change over time. So there was this heavy weight that essentially Block One was weighing on the ecosystem. And so last December, the EOS network, in true spirit of Web3, demonstrated that when something doesn't work out and people are not contributing value, that the community essentially has the power and it can take control over back from these, let's say, misaligned incentives from particular entities. And so the community through the block producers, the token holders through the block producers, elected to stop the payments to Block One and essentially take back the network in its own hands to be able to lead the development going forward. But that in itself wasn't enough. And so part of it is through the ENF, we will hold Block One accountable to its past commitments, its failed promises, and its failed actions because of what it did to the stakeholders over the last couple of years, essentially sucking a lot of the value out, not coming through with what its intended promises and commitments. Now, going forward, it's important to remember that Block One is a thing of the past. The community now has the network in its hands, and it is now directing where EOS itself is heading. And that's why it's tremendously bullish, because EOS is sitting on this pent-up demand. EOS is incredibly decentralized. Its foundations are incredibly strong, and it now has the capital, the resources, the skill sets in place to be able to lead the network and take back its rightful position in terms of one of the pioneers and truly strong competitors in the blockchain space over the years to come.
I just have two related questions. Both of them are about EVM's tech. So obviously everyone knows that EOS is the best technology in all of blockchain, and we've talked about some of the technological superiority about EOS EVM, but can you guys speak specifically to what type of maybe new types of applications or changes or anything along those lines that are enabled by things like sub-second block time? And that's the first question. The second question is if somebody could speak towards what the Rpc compatibility really means, what the relevance and significance of that is, and what that is really just for people who aren't familiar with that.
I can get the second one about the Rpc compatibility. Supporting the EVM on EOS is not only about the virtual machine, right? You not only have to have that runtime working in a compatible way, but then for developers to interact with the chain, they need a sort of API calls that are kind of standard, which are implemented by regular Ethereum clients like Go Ethereum or Silkworm or any other Ethereum client. There are a set of API calls that are kind of a standard for the EVM ecosystem. So when we say that we aim to have full Rpc compatibility, is that we want to support most of those calls. Some of them are more complex than the others, but really makes the lives of developers really easy. In fact, when you are interacting with MetaMask with any EVM network, basically MetaMask is using that interface. So you can be EVM compatible, but if you don't have a full Rpc compatibility, you will be like downgrading the quality of the product. So this is one of the major focus, like not only being most compatible EVM implementation that we can have on EOS based on the restriction that the layer 1 have, which are small, and also having full Rpc compatibility.
And to add to the first part of the question, you asked about the advantages, or I guess the possibilities that open up with EOS EVM, and you mentioned specifically, I think, 0.5 second blocks. So there's two parts to that, I guess. One is the speed at which EOS is capable of processing those transactions, but it's also the low cost at which is capable of doing so. And that's what opens doors to, and you keep hearing me refer to such things as GameFi. So even though, when we look at Ethereum transactions, we look at costs sometimes that are quite prohibitive to be able to do multiple actions on chain. And then we look at EVM compatible chains that really come and offset some of those costs and really open up the possibilities. But we're still talking about chains that are processing EVM transactions between 25 to 50 cents per transaction. And although that might seem low in comparison to what we have directly on Ethereum, it's still not low enough to be able to do things such as DeFi very effectively and rapidly, or GameFi, where we're talking about microtransactions, where the difference between a 1 cent or 2 cent transaction can really make a difference in terms of whether or not the product is capable of being monetized and or capable of generating a profit while being able to do so on chain. And that's really what EOS comes and enables, is that high throughput combined with those fast block times. Then you're able to really leverage the power of the EVM at incredibly low cost while not bottlenecking yourself with what you can potentially do on chain.
Okay, I see that Ponch is very active. So maybe Ponch, you can ask the last questions, please.
Hello, I'm from EOS Chinese community, and I have two questions. The first one is EOS EVM similar to Telos EVM? And also, as we have seen from the recent news, that the EOS is forming a coalition with Telos along with other entities on upgrading EOS ISIO code. And will EOS cooperating with Telos to do marketing, for example, in order to attract more developers? And the second question is, as we have seen more and more chains being compatible with EVM, now we have a major issue that the developers are not willing enough to move to EOS. So how to tackle this?
Good question. So there's a few questions in there. I'm going to try to address them one by one. I guess the first one was how or is there overlap between Telos EVM and EOS's EVM? So one of the things that we've mentioned on multiple occasions previously is that the Telos core developer group has been working hand in hand with Matias and his team, because what we want to work on is that functions or both architectures of Telos EVM and EVM essentially move in the same direction. So that ideally we are sharing a lot of the resources, we're sharing a lot of the know-how and the experience, and that we're moving in a similar direction because we share the same code base essentially. How EOS EVM differs at launch anyways is with its full RPC compatibility. Now, Telos is also working towards that, and they've started this process much earlier in terms of their EVM deployment. But at launch, the EOS EVM will be full RPC compatible, whereas the current iteration of Telos EVM isn't. Having said that, it is not a competition. As you've seen, we've now formed a coalition, an official coalition, to be able to deploy resources towards upgrading that EOSIO core code base as the four chains. So that's Telos, UX, and WAX. And so we are moving together to be able to market more and really deploy resources and really strengthen that underlying core code that unifies us in spirit of cooperation and not competition. Now, the second part of the question was about the competitiveness in the landscape and whether or not EOS will be able to attract developers through its EVM, seeing as other chains are also launching. One of the things that's important to remember with EOS is that really this is the fourth wave of EVM compatibility deployments, and EOS is late to the game, no doubt about it. But one thing that EOS has that other chains don't have is tremendous liquidity. That's essentially been, in a way, trapped over the last 4 years because nobody has been able to access it or leverage it. And so that's incredibly enticing for developers, combined with that full RPC compatibility, whereby developers that are working on other projects can very quickly come and deploy their applications on EOS to be able to access the community and be able to access the liquidity to be able to actually incentivize their users on other chains to come and start playing in the sandbox essentially together. We're able to work together. And that's one of the big things that EOS has not been doing very well, but that through these initiatives over the last couple of months, such as the coalition with other EOSIO iterations and or with the EVM, we're opening the doors and recognizing that others are all also working on tremendous things, really good things that are great for this space. And we're starting to form partnerships with them. And that's incredibly enticing to others because finally EOS is coming to the party. EOS is now joining late into the game, but its foundations are incredibly, and so there's something behind it. It's not fluff. The product is actually real. And so that really distinguishes EOS versus other chains because it's got the liquidity, it's got the community, it's starting to form the partnerships. It's got also, like I mentioned earlier, access to funding mechanisms such as the ENF grant framework and or Pomelo that are not on the roadmap. They're not things that are coming along in the next year. They're things that are already live, already functional. And so when you open the doors with the EVM, you get access to all of that, not in theory, but in reality. Now, combine all of that with the fact that EOS has not seen a price increase in the last year in this bull market, it represents a tremendous opportunity because you're not, if you are to come in at EOS at this stage, you're not coming in at an inflated price or at a hyped price or in an ecosystem that is valued more than its fundamentals. It's the opposite. EOS currently sits on tremendously strong fundamentals, and it hasn't seen that increase in actual valuation. And so again, this just represents a tremendous opportunity for people to come in at an extremely low barrier cost compared to other ecosystems. And the last thing to add to this is that everything that we've been talking about today aren't aspirational ideas. They aren't things that we're working towards. They're things that are already live, things that are already functional. These are actual things that have been there that just nobody's noticed, that the market hasn't noticed. EOS is kind of a sleeping giant. Nobody's known about it. And those doors are now being opened. And so it's not things that we're working on or things that will come about or things that we'd like to aspire to. They're current realities that now are being opened for the first time to a very large market.
Thank you, Daisy, and also thanks for Yves' elaborate explanation. So thanks for your listening. And for the questioners, please message it to ENF Twitter with your Twitter handle and your wallet address on Twitter. So thank you for your active participation, and thanks for our guests' wonderful answers. The launch of the EOS EVM platform is an important milestone for the ENF to show its capabilities to the EOS ecosystem and the community, since it became the leading organization of the EOS network. And it's also the first step in a number of upgrade plans to revitalize the EOS ecosystem. Looking forward to more gratifying changes by the ENF in the near future.